Rennae Stubbs just went on air and said the one thing Carlos Alcaraz fans did not want to hear right before the US Open. Less than 72 hours before he defends his title, one of the most connected people in tennis, Serena Williams' own coach, sat down on her podcast and refused to just wave away the growing concern about his wrist. Instead, she confirmed the exact thing everyone was afraid to ask about. So what did Rennae Stubbs actually say? And why does it change everything about how we should watch Alcaraz's opening match? Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's going on behind the scenes. To understand why this warning matters so much, you have to understand what Alcaraz is actually walking back into. January. Alcaraz wins the Australian Open, then the Qatar Open. He's playing the best tennis of his career, no real challengers in sight. Then April happens. He withdraws from the Barcelona Open right after a second-round win, citing inflammation in his right wrist. What looks like a minor precaution turns into something much bigger, much faster than anyone expected. Madrid, withdrawn. Rome, withdrawn. The French Open, where he was the defending champion, withdrawn. Wimbledon, withdrawn. Cincinnati, withdrawn. 5 tournaments, gone. One of them a Grand Slam title he never even got the chance to defend. For 4 straight months, the man who started the year as the most dominant player alive simply vanished from the tour. And now, with barely any competitive tennis behind him, he's about to step onto Arthur Ashe Stadium to defend the one title that matters most, which is exactly why what Rennae Stubbs said this week hit so hard. So let's break down what actually happened. This week, on her own tennis podcast, Rennae Stubbs, a former world #1 doubles player and right now the coach standing in Serena Williams' corner, sat down with co-host Caitlin Thompson, co-founder of Racket magazine, to talk about Alcaraz's return. Thompson opened the door first. She admitted she was nervous about Carlos and his wrist, said she wasn't feeling great about the situation, used the word scared, on air, without hesitation. Here's the moment that matters, though. Stubbs didn't brush that fear aside the way you'd expect a friendly insider to. She didn't jump in with instant reassurance. She sat with it. Because Stubbs, someone plugged directly into the tour, coaching one of the greatest players ever, wasn't ready to promise the room that everything was fine either. 2 people this close to the sport, both hesitating on air, in real time. That's not nothing. That's the tour's own inner circle telling you, without quite saying it outright, that this is an actual concern, not a manufactured one. Here's where the story takes its sharpest turn yet, because Stubbs didn't just sit with the fear. She addressed it head-on, then immediately followed that with the one piece of evidence that changes how you should read everything else. She confirmed that yes, Alcaraz's wrist is still a live concern. This isn't a fully healed forget-about-it situation, and she wasn't going to pretend otherwise on her own show. That's the warning. That's the headline. Coming from Serena Williams' coach, not a rumor account. But then, almost in the same breath, she gave the room something concrete. Alcaraz had just completed a full 2-hour practice session, on-site, at Flushing Meadows. Not a light hit for the cameras. Not a 10-minute warm-up to quiet the rumors. 2 full hours on the exact courts he's about to compete on, days before his opening match. She called it a great sign for everyone watching, and pointed out that nobody wants to see him out there, healthy and competing, more than she does. So this is the true shape of the story, a genuine warning, backed by someone who would know, sitting right next to a legitimate reason for hope from that same person. Not contradiction. Both things, true at once, and that tension is exactly what we need to dig into next. Stubbs backed the concern as real, but also handed us a reason for hope in the same breath. Which one wins out? Let's follow the trail of evidence piece by piece. Clue number 1. Before Alcaraz ever landed in New York, he was already testing that wrist under real pressure, back home in Murcia against Holger Rune. Not a casual rally, a genuine competitive set. The result? Alcaraz reportedly won it 7-6, 6-2. A real battle against a legitimate top-level opponent, and he comes out ahead. Then comes a wobble. Clue number 2. His very first hit out on site at the Open doesn't go his way. He drops a practice set 7-5 to fellow Spaniard Daniel Merida Aguilar. Not a disaster, but not the statement return fans wanted either. Clue number 3 makes it worse, not better. The very next day, Alcaraz gets back on court against Arthur Fils, the man who just won the Cincinnati Masters 1000, one of the biggest titles in tennis outside the majors. This time, there's no encouraging spin to put on it. Alcaraz loses more decisively, 1-6, 2-3. Sit with that for a second. 2 hitouts on American soil, 2 losses, and the second one considerably more one-sided than the first. That's not proof his body is fine. If anything, it's the exact evidence that should make Thompson's warning feel a lot less like an overreaction. And then, the twist inside the twist. Alcaraz's team responds by putting him through a 2-hour practice block on site, an intense, tightly controlled session with his brother Alvaro and his coach Samuel Lopez. Tennis reporters watching courtside called it unusual for this stage of a tournament. Some read it as red flag behavior, a team scrambling to fix something in a hurry. Others, including Stubbs herself, read the exact same session as a great sign, proof he's logging real hours on the exact courts he's about to compete on. Same 2 hours, 2 completely different interpretations depending on who's watching. That's the real story here. Not a clean trail of proof, but a genuinely divided read on what's actually happening inside Alcaraz's camp. Because here's what almost nobody is connecting yet. Stubbs' concern was about the wrist. But there's a second warning sitting inside the draw itself, one nobody on that podcast even mentioned. World number 1 Jannik Sinner, the man who's dominated the biggest matches against Alcaraz recently, is out with a knee injury of his own. On paper, that should hand Alcaraz the most open road to a title he's ever had. Except his actual quarter of the draw tells a different story. Ben Shelton, fresh off winning the Canadian Open, owner of one of the biggest serves in tennis, is sitting right there, thriving in exactly the kind of loud, electric atmosphere Arthur Ashe is about to become. And next to him, Arthur Fils, the same player who just beat Alcaraz in a lopsided practice set. Fils walks in as the reigning Cincinnati Masters 1000 champion, red hot, already with proof on the scoreboard against Alcaraz this week, and placed in the exact same quarter of the draw. Layer this on top of everything Stubbs said. Even in the best-case version of this story, wrist fully sound, practice form carrying over perfectly, Alcaraz still has to fight through 2 of the tour's hottest players, back-to-back, in the same section of the draw, on a body that's had 4 months off. Stubbs gave us one warning. The draw just gave us a second one she never even had to say out loud. And none of that quarterfinal danger even matters yet. Because first, there's round 1. This is where every piece of evidence we've talked about finally gets tested for real. Alcaraz opens against Russia's Roman Safiullin, his first genuine test since the injury. Not a practice set behind closed doors. Not a controlled indoor session away from the cameras. A real best-of-5 match, under lights, in front of a packed stadium, with his ranking, his confidence, and his entire season on the line. Every clue we've uncovered, the win over Rune, the 2 losses on American soil, the divisive 2-hour session, and yes, even Thompson's warning, all of it collides in this one match. This is the moment we find out whether Stubbs' optimism or Thompson's fear was actually reading the situation correctly. So here's where it all lands. A warning, confirmed on air by Serena Williams' own coach. A genuine reason for hope, delivered in that same breath. 2 losses on American soil, the second one considerably more lopsided than the first. And a second, unspoken concern sitting inside the draw itself, one that has nothing to do with his wrist at all. Every piece of this story is true at the same time, which is exactly why round 1 carries so much weight. It's the only place all of it finally gets tested at once. Does Carlos Alcaraz walk out and prove Stubbs' warning was the smaller story, or does round 1 show us she was right to hesitate? The main draw kicks off August 30th. We're about to find out. Here's what I want to know from you. Forget yes or no. How far do you actually think he goes? Quarters? Semis? Lifts the trophy again? Put your prediction in the comments and I'll pin the closest one once round 1 is done. And if you want to see who called it, hit subscribe, because we'll have the breakdown up within the hour.